It's a balance. I don't want to jam it down anybody's throat,
Yeah.
but I do not deny my faith. That's an even bigger sin. It's not popular in my industry, but I cannot deny my faith. It's important for me to share that with people.
Hollywood, as we've come to know it, isn't very welcoming to faith and the public display of it. Yet, amidst this hostility, one man has stood tall, and he's none other than Mark Wahlberg. The Boston-born actor is one of the few celebrities who wear their faith on their sleeves without fear. Of course, his decision to travel this path has come at a cost, including having to forgo a few blockbuster roles. But in the end, it paid off, and today, Mark Wahlberg ranks as one of the most prominent actors in Hollywood. To do this in an industry that's eerily hostile towards religion and high moral standards is an incredible feat. So, in this video, we'll reveal how Mark Wahlberg was able to pull it off. And to dive in deeper, we'll also examine the impact that his faith had on his career and the lessons we can take from it. Born on the 5th of June 1971, Mark Robert Michael Wahlberg is a talented American musician and actor. He is the youngest of 9 children born to Alma Elaine, a petty worker, and Donald Edmund Wahlberg Sr., who worked as a truck driver. Mark slipped into a dark place and led a troubled life at a very early age.
I had a lot of time to myself, and most of that time I spent running around the streets, getting a street education. I left school at an early age. I quit school at 13. Ended up getting into a lot of trouble.
From this point on, he started to engage in all sorts of vices, including stealing, drug abuse, and racially motivated violence. This, obviously, was a sign of what was to come, and the separation of his parents in 1982 also didn't help matters. His first major misdemeanor happened in June 1986. Mark and his friends chased 3 fourth-grade students with rocks while shouting, "Kill the N-word." In another incident a few months later, this notorious gang yelled racial epithets at a group of black students. Following these events, a civil rights injunction was issued against Mark and his friends. For a while, Mark's troublesome traits seemed to subside, but he was back to his old ways just 2 years later in April 1988. First, he beat a Vietnamese-American man out of consciousness with a wooden stick. That same day, he punched another man named Johnny Trin in the eye. The police initially picked him up for attempted murder, but after extensive investigation, the charges were stepped down to 2 counts of assault and battery. He also racked up other minor charges, including the possession of a dangerous weapon and marijuana. After several warnings, it seemed like Mark Wahlberg had finally run out of luck. His disobedience and misdemeanors had finally come back to haunt him. Having violated the civil injunction, he was faced with the possibility of spending up to 3 months in prison. It was a bleak period in his life, but his case wasn't beyond redemption. And thankfully, he was open to it. Upon realizing his fate, Mark determined he had to retrace his steps.
And that was a big wake-up call for me, Father, so I decided, I needed to turn my life around. And
Obviously, he couldn't turn back the hands of time to undo the atrocities he had committed. And even though he was committed to living a changed life, he had to serve his jail term first. It was at this very difficult moment that Mark decided to turn to God.
a lot of people go to God, especially when they get in trouble. And, when I heard the jail doors close behind me, I started praying right away.
Beyond praying, Mark Wahlberg reinforced his decision to make a U-turn, and he made a commitment to it.
But I knew that that was just the beginning for me, because I knew I really wanted to turn my life around. And I made a commitment at that day.
Furthermore, Mark owned up to his crimes. He pleaded guilty to the felony charge and served 45 days out of his 3-month sentence before he was released. Once he was out of jail, it was time for him to chart a course for his life. But first, he needed to identify the root cause of his problem. He thought deeply and came to the realization that he was being influenced by the wrong people. Before now, he hadn't paid much attention to it. But after his experience behind bars, he knew this was something he needed to change. So, he took a different approach and began to focus more on people that can influence him to live a better life.
I realized there were so many people around, You know, my parish priest, who I've known since I was 13 years old, Father James Flavin, I speak to him on a daily basis. You know, he was there, the members of the Boys Club, people who had dedicated their lives to serving, you know, their communities, had been there and were there finally, you know, and I was able to recognize the people that I should have been looking up to and looking to for inspiration.
Close interactions with these people helped Mark Wahlberg turn a new leaf. But his redemption was never going to be complete if he didn't make conscious efforts to make amends for some of the things he had done in the past. So, in 2006, he decided he would meet Johnny Trin and offer a heartfelt apology to him. And true to his words, Mark met with Johnny and his family to apologize in person. In addition, he submitted a pardon application to the state of Massachusetts. Johnny was gracious enough to accept Mark's apology and even urged the state to pardon him. But Mark's other victims were not as magnanimous. Speaking to the Associated Press, Kristen Atwood, one of Mark's victims, argued that the American actor should not be pardoned. "I don't really care who he is," Atwood said. "It doesn't make him any exception. If you're a racist, you're always going to be a racist. And for him to want to erase it, I just think it's wrong." This created quite a lot of bad publicity around the American actor. So, how exactly did Mark navigate this phase to become one of the most successful actors in Hollywood? Well, before we answer this question, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our Christian Celebrities channel to enjoy more faith-based entertainment content like this one. Interestingly, Mark Wahlberg initially made his debut in the entertainment industry back in 1990 as a music star. He had a couple of successful and chart-topping hits. In 1993, he made the decision to switch to the movie industry, which ultimately earned him global recognition. Mark attributes this seamless transition from music to acting to the discipline he learned from fasting and other rituals relating to his faith.
Discipline has always been important for me in life. Once I started getting into movies and transitioned from music, I realized I needed a lot of discipline in my life, and that discipline has afforded me so many other things, and I've been rewarded for it so much, and I want to share that with people. So whether that's with fasting, working out more, detaching from other things, and just spending more time with God in prayer or in thoughtful reflection, and those things are important. So,
in the aftermath of Mark's pardon application controversy, he was heavily criticized. But he continued to insist that he was a changed man. "My hope is that, if I receive a pardon, troubled youths will see this as an inspiration and motivation that they too can turn their lives around," Mark wrote in his application. However, following the widespread criticism, he discontinued the application. And many years down the line, he's been able to put everything behind him. Today, Mark Wahlberg owns a youth foundation that provides financial and community support to vulnerable youths. In addition, he runs many successful businesses and is easily one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, with over 40 producing credits and nearly 80 movies under his belt. Of course, he's had a few challenges, especially because of his controversial past and open display of faith. And he's not afraid to admit it. Mark understands that the American entertainment ecosystem isn't too friendly to people who wear their faith on their sleeves. So, while he's careful not to force it down other people's throats, the talented actor insists that he cannot deny his faith. But critically, this doesn't stop him from associating and relating with people from other religions.
I cannot deny my faith. It's important for me to share that with people, but I have friends from all walks of life and all different types of faiths and religions. So, you know, it's important to respect and honor them as well.
Due to his beliefs and strict moral standards, Mark Wahlberg has had to turn down a few roles. The actor was initially considered for a role in Brokeback Mountain, where he was supposed to star as a gay cowboy alongside Joaquin Phoenix. However, he turned down the offer due to the overly explicit sex scenes. His priest was also said to have influenced his decision to refuse the role. More recently, Mark Wahlberg also turned down a role in Star Trek because he couldn't understand the script. The movie went on to generate over $385 million. But Mark has no regret whatsoever. If anything, he's content with everything he has achieved so far and believes that he may not have been able to achieve so much without his faith. And that explains why he's very vocal about it.
Oh, it's everything. It really has. It's afforded me so many things. Obviously, you know, God didn't come to save the saints. He came to save the sinners. We've all had things and issues in our lives, and we want to be better versions of ourselves. And through focusing my faith, it's allowed me to do that.
Mark Wahlberg's story is truly inspirational. It shows that nobody is irredeemable regardless of their past and history. And more importantly, it proves that the practice and open display of our faith does not stop us from interacting with people from other religions.